Well, hey everybody, it's Kirk with the Kirk and Bill Show, and I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. We have a great show set up for you. I'm joined with my good friend Bill Teese, and just before we get started in talking about all of these financial issues and options that small businesses and businesses across the country are going to be dealing with, and Bill has done a lot of research. I'm going to ask a lot of questions and try and answer all of your questions. I want to just give a quick introduction to myself and allow Bill to introduce himself. Obviously, we're co-hosting this show, and we're excited about doing that. But we have businesses and things that we do other than this show. And I'm a small business owner here in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. I have a technology business that develops websites, designs graphics, puts together online video, and manages social media for my clients. And one of the new things that I am trying to do for my clients is help them bring their video to the next level, because so many of us are now social distancing ourselves from our clients and even our families. So if you have an interest for your business in bringing video into your business model, I would love to be a part of that. And I would encourage you to reach out to me, whether that's connecting with Zoom meetings, doing something like we're doing here with a live broadcast, or even just figuring out how to live stream your church service. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. And I have an entire show coming up tomorrow at 1:30 that I want to plug with a local church who is doing a great job at streaming. And we're going to break down all of the details of how they're doing it and how you can bring your church service and ramp up for the future. So, Bill, tell me a little bit about what's going on with you and introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Kirk. I'm glad to be back here, even though from my what I'm calling 947 studio in Dresser, Wisconsin, I look out my window, big white flakes dropping right now. So
Yes.
the social distancing aspect of today is not hard. I do not want to be outside. It's gross. But again, my name is Bill Teese, and I own WJE Company, LLC. I am a small business consultant, and I help companies grow. And right now I'm helping companies get through this crazy pandemic that we're working through right now. So I'm also on the board of the Falls Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the board of trustees for St. Croix Regional Medical Center as well. A lot of irons in the fire. And, today what we're going to work through is talk about what is on a lot of small business minds, a lot of bigger business minds, and that's this gigantic stimulus package that was passed and what is in it for specifically small businesses. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that right away. And then Kirk has some great kind of follow-up things to talk about how to continue to facilitate business in this. We can't go face-to-face anymore. We can't go face-to-face right now for at least 30 days. I saw that Minneapolis just closed their public pools and beaches and stuff for the whole summer, which made me a little bit sad, right?
Yeah, we're going
to think about it.
Now would be a great time to have a pool or have a neighbor with a pool. So
correct.
We are, we're, hopefully my goal or my hope, I guess, is that we live in enough of a rural area where we're not congested by population so that this virus is not going to affect us like it is some of the more densely populated areas that I would not want to live in. But we still have, our Walmarts, we still have to worry because there are cases popping up around us. And luckily, none officially in Polk County, but the reality is there's probably people that have some sort of the virus to some degree, whether they're showing symptoms or not. And so we got to be careful.
The odds would say that probably is likely.
Yeah.
Diagnosed or not, it's probably likely.
Right. So as you think about, the summer months, unless everybody tones it down and really goes, brings it to a level of zero interactions with anybody who's sick for 14 days or more, we're going to have sporadic spread, and
Yeah.
we want to make sure we're taking the precautions and things like that. But we also need to worry about the economy, and so
Correct.
that's what we're talking about today: is how do we protect our businesses? How do we utilize some of the opportunities that are being offered, whether we like it or not, whether it feels
Correct.
gross to take money. This is a very unique circumstance, very unfortunate circumstance, and it's affecting every portion of our lives. I can tell you from a person who's running for office, just reading today's news that the governor's now calling a special session for the Senate and the Assembly to come together to talk about postponing the election or pushing it out further into May. That just adds disruption to that part of my life, and to all
Right.
the other people who are running for office. And so we just, continue to hope that we can figure this out, and we'll do our best to share from a business aspect how we can help you out, how you can help yourself out. And with that, as we're going through this process, Bill's going to bring a lot of information. I'll bring some information. If you have questions, please put your questions in the comments, and we'll see those on the live broadcast. And if it's something that we can share with the audience and answer, we'll throw them up on the screen as well. So feel free to do that and share this stream with others, because this is something that's going to be important as we move forward. So Bill, take it away. Let's start with some of the things that you want to share today.
Right. So there's two major pieces of legislation or change that I want to talk about today, and they're both through the SBA, the Small Business Administration. Generally, what the SBA does is it helps local banks, or helps banks provide loans to businesses. And part of that is the federal government will back up a percentage of the loan, maybe up to 70%. So it encourages the banks to lend money because they know that they're only going to be on the hook for 30% of the loan if it goes south, which means that banks are going to be more likely to loan money to businesses, specifically small businesses. So there already is a whole ecosystem that exists there, and many of my clients actually have SBA loans for real estate, for business purchase, and they can be big, up to like $5 million. So they're pretty big. But what Congress rewrote and what the president signed was what's called the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program. And how that is different from a regular loan is that if it is used for the following things, and that is payroll and payroll expense, and that kind of has a broad definition, what utilities or mortgage, it actually doesn't turn into a loan at all. It actually can be forgiven. So it's a grant. So this is an amazing thing that is being offered to small businesses in this amazing time, that because state governments are saying you literally can't be open, or you can't have people in your shop even if you are open, there is a way for you to get money to help close that gap. Now, here's a couple of things about it just to be aware of. It is intended for small businesses, so that's 500 or fewer employees, and a few other definitional things. And it is capped at 2.5 times your normal payroll expense in a month. So if you normally have $10,000 in payroll, it can be a $25,000 grant. If you have $100,000 in payroll, it can be $2.5 million, and it's capped at a high end at $10 million. I'm not sure if you can figure out the math and get to $10 million, but that's where it's capped. Mm-hmm. And also, it only counts for the first $100,000 in wages in a year. So if you're a business that has, highly compensated employees of, more than $100,000, it can only do the first up to $100,000, and then it does. You can't continue that into your calculation. So right now, if you fit into that category, if you're a small business and you are being, the biggest thing is you have to be adversely affected by the COVID situation. And again, that is a very loose explanation that you have to put down on your loan application, is that you were adversely affected. I can probably think of 5 things off the top of my head that you could put down. no problem.
So let me ask you,
Go ahead.
You said that it might be forgiven or it may be forgiven. Um, what's the chance that it wouldn't be forgiven if you take this gigantic loan and it turns out to be something that has to be repaid? Is there something that they're going to check off on a list and say, you didn't
Correct.
make the, kind of like our health insurance that at the end of the year you might
Correct.
owe $10,000? So
Yeah,
how does
correct.
that work?
You will have to show proof through either bank statements or payroll statements that you actually use that money on payroll, that you use that money on your mortgage or on rent. Like you will have to show bank statements to do that, and then that becomes forgiven. The law is written that way, so if you do that, it will be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way that the law is written. If you use it for a portion of your business that is not forgivable, it is the interest rate is 0.5%, so 0.5%. It is deferred for 6 months from the time that you get it, and then it has a 2-year amortization rate, so you have to pay it back over 2 years. So even if you end up using it for something else, like let's say that you are a restaurant and you have to make your next purchase of food, or you're a small manufacturer and you need to bring in raw product and you need to use that money for it, that money then turns into a loan that is not forgivable, and you have to pay it back. But
Okay.
again, it's at an extremely low interest rate, and it still is an extremely favorable way to borrow money versus your standard line of credit or a
Right.
credit card or whatever.
Yeah, the percentage rates are extremely low. It's a short period of time to pay it back. But so if it's for payroll, but you're not able to work, maybe you're not having your employees do a lot. Is that to subsidize them so that they
That's the
continue
whole
to
point
work?
of it.
It's not.
That is
It's not assuming that you're doing something that's earning money. It's that you're continuing to pay even though you don't have income coming in.
I believe one of the in my opinion, this is my opinion, I believe that is one of the reasons that it is being pushed out. And there's something like $349 billion for this program that's going to be pushed out, and that is to help small businesses keep people on the payroll and keep them being paid through this time,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're working or not. Quite
Right.
frankly.
Okay. So move on to the next point there, and let's see if we can get some more information.
All right. So starting today, theoretically, banks are able to process transactions. Now, I've heard from a few different bankers that the SBA was making changes up to like 10 o'clock last night. So I'm not sure it's quite ready for prime time yet. But I spoke with Angela Kazimierski, who is an SBA banker at Midwest One, who I know very well. And there was a couple of points that she wanted me to get home. Hopefully we can get her on. She said she'd come on and talk, but she thinks they're going to be really busy, getting these things done for the next several weeks. One, she urged absolute patience with the process. This is not something that can happen overnight. Even if you were to fill out an application today, it still has to make it through process. It has to get funded, and the money has to be, dispersed to you. That can take several weeks. So this isn't something that you apply for it and the money's going to be deposited in your checking account like the next week. It's going to take a little bit of time. So she asked me to urge patience. If you need, there's going to be certain documentation that you're going to need with it as well. There's not going to be a lot, but you're going to need prior tax returns. You're going to need the actually proof of payroll and proof of kind of all these things, the reason why you're asking for money. So have that available and present it all at the same time, and get it, if you're working with a loan officer, get it to them as fast as you can and get it to them all in order, because the more back and forth that you have to do, the further down the list that you're going to get set. And this money is first come, first serve. So it will run out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've put an end date. You can apply through June 30th. But the thought process is the money will be gone before then.
Right. So what is how do you know which bank to go with? It's your primary bank that you.
Well, great question, Kirk. The bank has to be an approved SBA lending bank, and not all banks are like that. Most around here have that designation. In the greater Western Wisconsin area, Or if they don't have it at your exact, if there's multiple branches, there may not be an SBA lender at your specific branch, but the likelihood is that they will be there. Also, interesting, the federal government expanded what is capable of being an SBA lender. It used to just be banks, but I got an email from QuickBooks that I use for my software saying they are trying to figure out a way for you to apply directly from QuickBooks and then have the money deposited into your account directly through QuickBooks, them acting as a bank. How that's going to work, I'm not 100% sure, but the federal government wants money to get out into small businesses as fast as possible. So kind of it's unprecedented. It's amazing that we're sitting here talking about it, to be honest.
So you had two acronyms. You had the PPP and the EI.
DL.
Yes.
Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So one last thing on the Payment Protection Program, the PPP. Next Friday, the 10th, independent contractors and other self-employed individuals will also be available to apply for this grant. And that is something that normally under most SBA rules, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. You would have to be an LLC or incorporated in order to do it. So if you have a business and it's just you and you don't have a formal entity that is around you and you don't get a W-2 paycheck, you're 1099 or you just file under Schedule C on your profit and loss on your taxes, you can qualify for this. Now you're going to have additional stuff that you put forward to prove it. You're going to have bank statements, and you're going to have to probably have a profit and loss statement, your tax records, have all that stuff lined up. But if you do not have an LLC, or if you're not incorporated, this in a week, theoretically, you will be able to apply for this too. So it's going to help a lot of people that are small business owners that are really small business owners. They're the only employee or they're 1099. So that's a pretty amazing change from normal as well.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. I mean, the majority of businesses that I know are still in that boat. Obviously there's businesses that have broke through and have gone with that S Corp. They have some employees. They've built that. But for me as a business person, I've been in business for 17 years and went from a sole proprietor to an LLC and have thought about going to an S Corp, but there's additional things that have to happen. So I'm still LLC, but basically treated the same as a sole proprietor. Has this affected my business?
You're a disregarded entity.
Right. Yeah. So it's just me. And, my wife is, she helps with a lot of the business aspect, but, how it's going to affect those of us who have not, 7 or 8 employees or even one employee, let alone 500. That's, I think that's where a lot of smaller businesses that are mom and pop shops and ideas that they've successfully brought in income and maybe have replaced income. And now they're like, what do? We haven't paid into unemployment. So where do we go from here?
So I would encourage, if you're interested in that, we can put this information out on our website. We can put it on the stream. You can email me, bill@wjecompany.com, and I'll send it to you. But the reality is that if you are really interested in this, you need to talk to your banker right away, get their information. And if you have an accountant, you need to talk to them right away, because they're going to be able to there's a formula that you're going to have to put together, and they're going to be able to do it for you faster than you probably can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you're a whiz with your books and you know it inside and out, I would encourage you to call your banker, call your accountant, and again, be patient, because think of all the small businesses. Everyone that's affected by this is jumping in.
And if
so it's a lot.
If your accountant is also your tax guy, right now is not a great time to try and get a hold of them to add something to their plate, because most tax people are still processing taxes. So that brings up another question then. Do you need this year's taxes to do this, or is it based on last year's?
You do not need this year's taxes done, especially since they've been moved out an extra 90 days. Mm-hmm. So you don't need this year's taxes done. You can go off of last year's. but you're going to have to document what you've done this year so far, just to make sure there needs to be some checks and balances. If you had $100,000 worth of payroll last year per month, and now this year, before COVID happened, say you cut down to 50, the bank and the SBA and the government's going to want to know that 50 is kind of your average number. So
right.
I'm going to look at last year. They'll look at what you've actually done this year. And again, if you don't have payroll, they're going to look at what you took in, your revenue, and then your expenses and kind of what was left over and any owner's draw you would have taken out, that sort of thing. So,
okay. So that was the PPE or the PPE. That's my firefighter talking. PPP.
Right. PPP.
But then there was the other acronym.
Right.
And you said they're very similar, but there's some differences. So what are the differences? Right. Or did you already cover
so those? The economic injury and disaster loan is still administered through the SBA. Mm-hmm. And one of the major differences between the EIDL and the PPP is that the EIDL, for the vast majority, is not forgivable. It is actually a loan. And it's for companies that are a little bit bigger. We're talking the PPP is going to be for companies that are small, that don't have a ton of payroll. When you get bigger, the economic injury and disaster loan can be up to $2 million, and it can be pretty much used for anything that needs to happen that runs your business. Right. That's not marketing. So it can be used for payroll. It can be used for debts. It can be used for accounts payable. You're just kind of using it. Essentially, it's a big line of credit because you've been injured through this COVID-19, the shutdowns and that sort of thing. It's 3.75%, but it can be amortized over 30 years.
30 years.
So wow. 30 years at 3.75%. So really it's for bigger companies that need a bigger influx of cash to get them through. And there is a provision in there that you can you apply and you say, you know what, I need money right now. And they may be able to, up to $10,000 may get forwarded to you. And if you use that to maintain payroll and not lay people off, then that chunk could be forgivable up to $10,000. But that's they're still working out the kinks on that. But the EIDL is, if you need more than what 2.5% of your average payroll can be, mm-hmm. you need to move that direction. And you can't use them for the same thing, but you could apply for the PPP, use that up, and then you could apply for an EIDL after as well. So they could be used concurrently, just not for the same payroll expenses and the same expenses, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you could use up the PPP. Once that is used up and you feel good is going to be forgiven, you can move on to the EIDL if your business still needs money. And at that point, if we're now that far down the road, we have to get back to the economy moving at some point. So I'm hopeful that these programs can kind of keep enough lubrication in the economy that things don't seize up, because it's going to be scary. I mean, if things get extended through summer, oof.
So let me ask you some questions that maybe you do or do not know. If I get a student loan, there's very few things that are not forgivable under bankruptcy. A student loan, right, I believe, is one of those.
Correct.
So is this something, let's say you take this loan and then your business still just can't recover, and now you've indebted yourself to a pretty big chunk. You've paid your employees, you've done your due diligence, and things go south. Now, I'm hoping that this is going to turn around a lot faster than that, and that we're going to see a rebound in our economy. Some of these businesses and restaurants and companies that are hurting are going to get the support that they need, and it's going to just be a good thing. Are these bankruptable, or will you be forever indebted, lose your house, lose your car, serve in servitude your kids? Do you know anything about that?
I am not a lawyer, but as far from my understanding of this, with the caveat that I am not a lawyer, the EIDL is not available to anyone that is not an entity. So you would have to be an LLC or incorporated.
Okay.
So, and then like they would be like any other debt that you would have in a business if your business needs to stop or you need to declare bankruptcy, and then the regular orders would apply to that as creditors get paid out, assets get sold off. The PPP, I don't know. That's theoretically forgivable. So my assumption, again, this is a huge assumption, would be that if you were to follow through with the terms that you signed up for and it was used appropriately, that it's forgiven and that it's not actually a long-term debt that you have to carry on your books or that you would carry through. But like anything, debt is debt, and it can change at any time. So when you're taking these out, be careful. You want to survive on the other end, but
Yeah, I mean
you want to be careful.
that's always been a challenge. I mean, Shar and I, and I don't know if you did or not, but I think you're familiar enough with Dave Ramsey, who's
Right.
absolutely against any debt, and so this is I would love to listen to his show
Right.
as this rolls out. As he's probably got a very strong opinion, my guess, against anything that's not forgivable.
Right.
And so I'll have to kind of listen to that. But it's most definitely going to be a challenge no matter what. Anytime you incur debt, as a person who I haven't had a credit card since 2006. When I took Dave and taught Dave Ramsey classes, I cut all those up. And the only debt we have is our house. But that doesn't mean that we don't have expenses. We have 5 kids.
Right.
We have 5 kids. So we have expenses. We have teenagers. We have lots of food expenses. We have car maintenance and things like that. But to add any type of debt on a small business is, a potential recipe for a challenge. So from my perspective, if you don't have to take it, then I would encourage you to not take it. Don't use it as a cash advance or as a credit card, to do something that you wouldn't have done had this not been an issue. Casey Danger, it's a cool name, said, I've heard people ask if there's a minimum on the EIDL, thinking, oh, hey, I'll get the cash advance really quick and then not need much of it for the rest of the loan anyway. Do you know if there's a minimum or maximum to the EIDL?
The EIDL. I don't know. I don't know what the minimum is. I think it's $2,500 on the PPP, and it's capped at 10. And the EIDL would probably be about the same, capped at 2 million.
Okay,
that's what I get. Casey's my sister, so she's in Seattle. She's in the.
Is that her real name
right now?
Is that her real last name?
No, it's different, but for some reason she just leaves it like that on Facebook.
That's awesome.
But she's in Ground Zero. She's actually helping. She has a nonprofit that she works with. I don't know if it runs out there that is working with small businesses through the exact same thing that we're talking about right now.
Right.
Because she's in Shoreline, which is kind of Ground Zero for where COVID-19 broke out. So they're feeling it. They're like a month ahead of where we are right now.
Right. So wash your hands out there.
Yeah, over and over.
Yeah, I just almost scratched my nose. Don't touch your face. I'm alone in this room. There's nobody here. I've been watching the news because I want to keep up with what's going on the East Coast, the West Coast, and I'm just aware that there's a lot of people that are in a lot worse shape than we are. And right. I think kind of alluding to what I talked about earlier, we get used to not feeling the stress of this as a people. We see people at the skate park. There was a group of kids at the skate park, and I see kids playing ball together in the neighborhood and stuff like that.
Right.
And we're just kind of like, we're in the country, nobody's sick, so why worry? Different perspective when you look at what's going on in New York and just how quickly this can happen, and you see doctors who are now blog experts or vlogging, and they're giving firsthand accounts of people that had come in relatively healthy looking, saying, I just don't feel good. And then 5 hours later, they're on a respirator and it's breathing for them. How quickly this can happen. And it's not just 75-year-olds. There are younger people. There are people.
Yeah, the statistics in the United States is a little scarier. Like it's a much more even spread of who was testing positive for
Right.
the disease than what we were kind of initially led to believe of. Oh, it's just only old people, sick, sick people, old sick underlying issues. Well, a lot of the United States has underlying issues. They talk about comorbidity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obesity is a comorbidity, so that's almost all of America.
Yeah,
So I mean,
absolutely.
pretty much everybody is, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity.
Right.
Those you start looking at all levels, all ages. There's a lot of people that this can affect. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I just want everybody to stay safe. But at the same time, as someone who helps businesses grow, I want businesses to be able to continue too. So the fascinating thing that we're going to be watching is, how do the numbers go? How does it peak? And how do we get out of this? Because if we stay this way for 6 months, I don't want to talk about what I think
Yeah.
would happen if we would be socially isolated for 6 months and businesses not open. It would just be, catastrophe. So eventually we're going to have to come out of this. We're going to have to find a way to continue to operate and continue to conduct business and commerce. Maybe we stay 6 feet apart everywhere that we go and things are just happen slower, but eventually we have to come out of this.
Yeah.
You're talking about churches, and you talk about, yours is online, ours is audio. But even that, eventually the need for human connection is gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an extroverted introvert, so some of this doesn't bother me.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I have friends that are like mega extroverts that are like dying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we look at the number of unemployment requests that are
Yeah.
coming in, and it's astronomical. I mean, this is
6.6 million
yeah,
this week.
and climbing fast. And so as we start, just understanding those numbers and looking back, now it was a different time period. There was different politics involved and technology and everything. But the stock market crash back in the 29, 30,
Right.
those numbers, we're dwarfing that. Now we have a bigger population and things like that, but people are comparing
And we have
it.
unemployment insurance to track. So there,
Yeah, yeah. But I don't want to see what happens in 6 months.
No,
And
nope, I do not.
but that means that people need to innovate, and
Correct.
we as a society are learning a lot of things. A lot of businesses are looking at what's going on with technology and how easy it is and how really actually convenient it is to just meet online. And a lot of them are saying, hey, even after this is done, we're going to really implement this on a bigger scale. And
Right. How much fixed overhead do you really need in real estate if video conferencing to a certain extent works? Does everyone have to have their own workspace in their own cube?
right.
Or could you have 25% less? Could you reduce your overall expense and footprint by 25% and get the same amount of work done?
Yeah. And, there's businesses that are not going to be successful with that. I know realtors are trying to reinvent the wheel right now. And how do we sell a house?
Hard to buy or sell a house if you can't go in it.
Right.
If you can't see it.
Yeah. So I think that we have to innovate. We have to be thinking outside of the box. How do we sell online? How do we, turn a profit on things that are digital products? Will this affect newspaper sales? And one of our future guests will be an individual who is in the sphere of news and is completely online, and he's got some opinions on that, and he's made that transition and very successfully. How will it affect other industries? And some industries will probably sunset and not be here, and others are going to pop up, and we're going to see some crazy new amazing things that we would have not seen had this not occurred. And we've seen that in every bad thing that's happened. There's always been some innovation that has caused something amazing to pop up on the market. And so if you can be the $1 million idea and break through on that and turn your idea into something that people need, then let's talk about it, because there's a lot of opportunity for that.
Right.
One of the big things that is kind of come around is video conferencing. And so do you have anything else that you wanted to kind of close on with the previous discussion, or do you want to move into segment two?
No, that was it. If you have questions, feel free to direct message me, and I'll
Yeah.
give you all the information that I have, and put you in the right. If you don't have a banking relationship, or don't have an accountant, I'll give you names of people that I trust
Yep.
to get this done for you.
So I want to make sure that people know that they can reach out to us, and they can do that right through Facebook. But by and large, your bank and your tax person, your accountant, is going to be a huge resource for that. And that deadline is coming up, so don't drag your feet on that. So moving into the segment that I wanted to talk about was just technology and some of the really neat things that are happening.
Right.
And one of the pivot points or the transitions that one company made was to create a system for churches to stream online and kind of provide the back end technology and the cameras and all that stuff that you can just tie into, and they are exploding right now. So what is your big idea as a business owner to get that to explode for you, and how do you take it to that market? And so that's where I would love to sit down and have that brainstorming session with you and let you know that you can talk about that and develop that idea with people like myself, with Bill, who we take those ideas and we help you develop them and help you bring them to market. Using technology is a big part of a lot of businesses that 2 weeks ago would have said, nope, we meet in person. But suddenly they're faced with, how do we meet now that we can't meet? And so I wanted just to bring up a couple resources that are really quite amazing. I have my favorites and I have my not as favorite from past experience. My guess is that they've all kind of upped their game since I've used them. But obviously there's WebEx and there's GoToMeeting. Those are two that when I did use them fairly regularly, they were a little glitchy and they were not as user-friendly as I would have liked. The kind of popular one right now is Zoom, and I think a lot of schools are utilizing it. I think they've got a great deal for schools right now to be able to do that. I use it for my business. I use it for my marketing group and for Rotary, and it is really easy to get online. So if you want to check out Zoom for your next meeting, you can go to zoom.us. You can get a free version, which allows you to meet with a number of people for up to 40 minutes, and you're able to record those meetings. If you want to do longer meetings and include more people, up to 100 people for $14.99, you can utilize 100 people. You'll see their pictures right on the screen. It's a very user-friendly interface. You can record the meetings and upload them. And if you want to up that to be able to broadcast similar to what we're doing for an additional $40, and I wish it wasn't quite as expensive, but for $40 a month, you can add on their webinar add-on, and that allows you to actually stream live on like Facebook. And so you can stream a meeting like we're doing. Now, that's a great resource. There's other ones like that for meetings where you can meet with 10, 20 people or a team of 2. You can do that privately, or you can do it openly by streaming. Now, I will say with Zoom, there has been some issues that have been in the news. There was a city council meeting in, I think, Florida that somebody hacked into it. There are bots out there that look for Zoom addresses, and they will go in and cause all sorts of problems. There was some unfortunate content that was streamed live during a city council meeting, and the administrator didn't know how to shut her down fast enough, and so it got streamed out, and it was pretty embarrassing. So you do not want to just share your Zoom URL out on social media, because there are robot bots that will go jump into rooms and cause issues. So just be aware of that. They do have a password function, and it's very robust. So
Also, when you're doing these meetings, if you have microphones or you have wireless earbuds like I do, make sure you mute yourself when you go to the bathroom, because I've seen a couple of those videos on
yes,
Facebook and
yeah, that was
YouTube as well, and they're graphic
yeah,
and
no,
hilarious.
that was bad, unfortunate. So yeah, that was another city official. That was the mayor of a town that left the meeting, and everybody got a laugh. Oh my goodness. So yeah, we want to make
That's
sure
horrible.
you're aware that anything that's out on Facebook or out there potentially can, you might forget to shut it off. I think it was a parody, but there was a Zoom meeting that was going around on Facebook, where there were four people in a meeting, and they signed off and said, "All right, we'll see you later." And we joke about, having a nice shirt up top and underwear below, and we're working at home, so maybe pajama bottoms. And this guy signed off from his meeting, didn't shut off the meeting, and got up, and he was in like some fancy underwear, and he started stretching, and people were just cracking up trying to get his attention. That's not too far off from the truth. If you don't hit end, it
Correct.
could be a bad deal. So be aware of that. What I'm using for putting this content out is something called Ecamm Live. It is a Mac only type of software. And so if you want to do this, if your business or you personally have a message that you would like to get out to your friends, your family, your business persons, you want to be a podcaster or whatever, you can use Ecamm. If you don't have a Mac, there are some other options that you can look into. There's something called vMix, VMIX, which is a real popular one. There's a free one that, whenever they're free, they tend to not be as user friendly, but there's something called OBS. You can do everything that we're doing right here. It has great lower thirds. It has video. It has things that you can integrate in there. But that is another option. And then there's a variety of other ones out there too.
Sure.
If you just search, there's ways to do it. From a church standpoint, um, I'm sitting in front of a webcam, and there's not a lot to it. You're on Skype. You're sitting in front of a webcam. I could add 3 or 4 cameras and have quite the setup, but we're not doing that at this point. At a church, you may want to have multiple cameras and have it a little bit more fancy. So there's levels to how you would do that well. Probably the lowest level would be to take your phone and put it on a tripod, hit go live on Facebook, and just go live. And check out the video that we're going to do if you go to a church or your church would like to kind of up your game. There's some things you have to worry about with copyright for songs.
Right.
You need to, know about microphones. And if you got a phone that's too far away, you're not going to hear the speaker. You want to know about, quality of broadcasting and internet speed and things like that. We cover a lot of that. But you can get a phone and go live in no amount of time. If
And
you,
can I tell? Can I
yeah, go
can I
ahead.
can I interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
If you're a business owner or manager right now, and you want to start this, don't spend 4 days digging through the internet to figure out what the right thing is to do. Figure out what you say. Pick up your phone, put it on your Facebook page, put it on Twitter, whatever you use, social media wise. Put it on YouTube. If you need to set those pages up, spend the time setting those pages up, but just do something and get it out there.
Yeah.
You can work on the actual polish of your production later, right? Churches or if you're doing something where it's more formal, you want to have that better. But small businesses, put it on the tripod, flip it around, selfie yourself, just get content out there.
Yeah.
That's don't wait, don't get bogged down. If you want to know what options are out there, call Kirk. He'll give you a list real quick, and then you don't have to do the Google.
Absolutely.
And he can help you figure it out.
Yeah. The big thing with right now, the equipment that we would normally just go to Walmart and buy, they're all sold out. Everybody,
You can't buy a webcam
right?
right now. You
So
can't find one.
if you want the webcam that I use a Logitech 922. You can go to Amazon and you'll pay 3 to 4 times as much as I paid for mine
Right.
because price gouging. You can go to eBay and maybe buy a used one and get it for the new price, but you're not going to go to Walmart. You're not going to find that webcam very easily, and it's this is where we are, and even
I looked at Best Buy. I looked at BestBuy.com yesterday, and they are sold out.
yeah,
Like you can't get a webcam.
right. So if you want help with that, you can let me know, and I will look for high quality webcams that may be used at this point, but we can still get them and help you set
Yep.
that up so that you can do these broadcasts. If you are looking for new and are willing to pay that premium price, we can get them shipped to you through Amazon or go to a store if they have them, but we would have to call ahead. But those are things that you're going to have. Most of the cameras that are like onboard cameras on your laptop or iPhone, they are good to a certain extent, but they're not the same quality once you up your level. So if you want to do a better quality video, you can use a DSLR and plug it into your
Yeah.
computer, and that will enhance your video quality substantially, but it's not necessary. And you don't want to get paralyzed by, I'm not going to do it perfectly. Bill and I joked around. I don't know, we joked around. We talked about it seriously, but we never took action on it because we were both busy. Back in January, we should do some kind of a podcast or do a show or
Right.
something like that. And once this affected our business, we decided, hey, let's do it. And here we are. Is it perfect? No. Have I built a wall behind me? No, I've got those ugly curtains back there. But it is what it is. And eventually we've got that stack of books. So we want to not be paralyzed by the fear of doing it perfectly, because nobody's going to do it perfectly. And the reality is you're going to get a lot better the more you do this. And
Correct.
I'm much more comfortable behind the camera shooting video of somebody else than I am in front of the camera talking. And I had a very good friend of mine give me some feedback and say, you need to make sure you don't say ums and ahs. And I totally appreciate that person's feedback. And I'm trying not to say ums and ahs, but you know what? When you're in front of the camera and you're trying to run the show as well as be part of the show, you forget sometimes not to say that stuff. So that being said, technology is moving forward. There's a lot of great tools out there. It can be as easy as using what you already have in your pocket, or jumping up and doing a full studio and becoming a very professional vlog person that is putting out great content on a regular basis. It's totally
multiple
up to you.
cameras, producers,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
whole bit.
And we might get there. We might get there.
Who knows?
It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it, is when we're not in a pandemic and we can actually sit in the same studio and not do this over Skype. That would be a lot of fun. So
I concur. It's easier to do. It is easier to transact business or do things when you are in the same room as someone.
yeah,
The technology is simply amazing, but it's just not the same as being face to face. Even if we have to sit 6 feet away,
yeah,
I'll sit 6 feet away, no problem.
that's right. All right. Well, I think we've kind of covered the show today, and I want to
Awesome.
thank everyone for being a part of it. Please go ahead and share this stream. Feel free to continue to ask questions in the comments. We'll follow up on those. And Bill, thanks for being part of this little project that we have going. And we'll look forward to hopefully this summer getting together in person and maybe having a barbecue or something like that. So
right on. Well, to everybody out there and to you and your family, have a good weekend. Stay safe, and we'll be back next week and talking to you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. And catch Saturday's show. Bill is not a part of that show. He is absent, but I did bring another individual in, and that's at 1:30 on Saturday, ready to go. We'll see you next week for a live broadcast. Catch you guys later. Thanks, everyone.